But first, an ITV News investigation has uncovered the shocking state of England's crumbling NHS hospitals. Half of those questions said they had long-standing issues, ranging from leaks to collapsing floors and even raw sewage. In some cases, it's forced entire wards to be shut down. Doctors have told us that patient safety is being put at risk as some of the problems are potentially dangerous, and they fear something catastrophic may happen. Hospital staff have shared footage with us to highlight the appalling conditions they're forced to work in. Our investigations correspondent Daniel Hewitt has this exclusive report.
It is not the sound or the sight you expect on a hospital corridor. An industrial bin catching water from a leaking ceiling. It was filmed by a doctor on shift in an NHS hospital, and doctors from trusts across England have come forward to ITV News with evidence of the appalling conditions they are forced to treat patients in every day, with leaks so severe they flood and close corridors, with holes in the ceiling and paint peeling off the walls, where entire wards have become so unsafe they've been permanently shut. This is Beacon Ward at St Helier Hospital in South London. At least it was. Last year the floors began to collapse, the walls began to crack, and so it was condemned. Precious space this very busy hospital cannot afford to lose. Where there isn't danger here, there is disrepair and dereliction. The hospital invited us in to show us just how bad it's become.
Thank you.
Consultant Dr. Pauline Swift takes me around this inpatient unit, where the broken doors have to be propped shut by a waste bin.
I feel sometimes like the NHS is just, held together with new licks of paint and plywood. Yeah. There are leaks, a lot of leaks. Paint is peeling off the walls. It looks very much like a temporary shack, if you would like. What I worry about is that our patients they're not normalised to this, and they come in then and wonder what sort of care are they going to receive. But I can assure you that they receive first-class kidney care here. Yeah. The conditions that we give the care in are not suitable. Not now, not ever.
In November, a different area of the hospital leaked so badly it flooded. Staff shared videos with us of the damage and destruction. And on the maternity ward, this was what greeted pregnant mothers turning up at reception, staff having to work under a bulging sheet of water. Everywhere you look in this hospital, there is something wrong. Cracked walls, taped up windows, entire areas closed off because it's unsafe. At a time when staff here are being pushed to their limits, this is what they have to work in. And it is adding pressure. This is meant to be an intensive care unit. Instead, it's being used to store equipment because the ventilation system no longer works and the building is too old for a modern replacement. But it's far from the only hospital with major issues. 50% of hospital trusts in England who responded to our investigation had an unresolved structural or maintenance problem in at least one hospital. Some had several issues. In North Tees, they said the building is no longer fit for purpose and presents significant safety issues for our staff and patients. At Huddersfield Royal Infirmary, there is potential for falling stone. At Liverpool's Walton Centre, they've had leaks unresolved for 8 years. The Queen Elizabeth Hospital building in King's Lynn is being held up by 61 temporary props, while Torbay Hospital has significant structural defects in the concrete floors above 2 operating theatres.
My name is Sarah Hills.
And patients are feeling the impact. Sarah was taken to Croydon University Hospital in November.
To document the state of the NHS.
She'd been rushed in for emergency surgery and stayed overnight, but she was so shocked by the conditions on the ward, she filmed what she found.
And he's growing up and around and up into the...
So that was in the bathroom?
This is inside the bathroom.
Including a tree growing through the toilet window on the ward. But there was a much bigger concern.
The first thing you felt was how cold it was. There was no heating whatsoever coming out of any of the radiators on the ward. And these are the non-working heaters. My nose was freezing and it was bitter. So they brought down one portable oil-filled radiator that was put near my bed. That was it for a whole ward. I looked up at the ceiling above my head and it was cracked, and it concerned me, would something dropped from the ceiling. Staff were trying to work in such poor situations. My heart just bled for them. How can you try and do a professional job when the fabric of the building around you is literally crumbling?
Croydon NHS Trust apologised to Sarah and said the ward was used temporarily due to exceptionally high demand. New windows and heating have now been installed. Most trusts we contacted wouldn't let us in to see the conditions, and we've spoken to NHS doctors from across England who say the issues are being played down and even hidden, but fear repercussions if they speak out. Two of them, one working in the south of England and another in the East Midlands, agreed to speak anonymously.
It feels like we're always just hoping that the next time something happens, it doesn't cause something catastrophic. I feel like we should all be working in an environment where we know that the roof is going to hold and that everything's going to be fine.
I don't think I've worked in a single hospital which hasn't had leaks. You know, I've had to push a critically unwell patient through dripping water, effectively, getting both me and the patient wet. There have even been some cases that I've heard where you've got raw sewage coming through ceilings into clinical areas.
40 new English hospitals have been promised by the government. St Helier is one of them, but right now it stands as a symbol of neglect. For how much longer can buildings that predate the NHS itself bear the brunt of today's never-ending pressures?
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? It's really shocking. What's the government said about this?
Well, the government, in response to our investigation, the Department of Health have said it's spending record sums upgrading and maintaining NHS buildings in England. It points to those 40 new hospitals that Boris Johnson promised with some fanfare in 2019. Though it's worth pointing out, Mary, the latest data suggests only 7 have actually started being built. Interestingly, the government also quite keen to point out to us that trusts have a legal obligation, a legal responsibility to maintain their buildings and have capital funding to do so. I think what hospital bosses would say and have said is they're not sitting on pots of cash and letting hospitals fall into disrepair. If they had the cash, they would fix it. They say the cash simply isn't enough. And there is no doubt when you look at the data on this, Mary, that the problem is getting worse. In 2011-12, the cost of clearing a backlog of repairs in the NHS was just under £5 billion. Today, it is over £10 billion. It has doubled in a decade, and what staff say to us is they're really concerned about the consequences.